Hello, my name is Ben Keat. I'm going to make a quick video here just about explaining how I think people should try and approach the Ascension agenda, which is so prevalent in much New Age teaching that you see out there on the internet. Some of this is good stuff and could be watched. A lot of it has to be taken with a pinch of salt. I think it's a good ethos and it's a good uh, idea behind it. But I think a lot of people are going to get swept up in something they don't understand or um, probably believe too much in themselves that they're capable of doing more than they really are. And in my view, it's definitely a case of only trying to achieve what you can perceive around you that you are capable of changing. Um, I don't think you should try and escalate yourself to too high a level too quickly because it's not that important that we reach the higher levels. What is important is that a lot of people talk about the fourth and fifth dimension shift, moving from the current state that mankind's in, or the third to fourth, or the fourth to fifth, whatever it is at the moment that people are in. And getting above yourself to a more spiritual level is simply about living a more spiritual life. It's about taking in what's around you and not making too much of it. You know, not making too much, not worrying too much about your situation in life, your financial situation, all that sort of thing. You have to leave uh, the, the the reality that you're in to make an ascension shift. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of trying to reach a far higher dimension before they're actually ready, and they're forgetting about the interim phase that we're experiencing between the next level up as people progress to that level. Um, and it's the people who keep themselves more grounded, I think, in many ways, who have a far better reality um, and movement, a slower but a more progressive and grounded and solid movement upwards. Um, and this is very imperative. This is very important. It's important you know where your feet are. You know where you're grounded to. At the same time, it's important that as you fill yourself up and as you reach your higher status, that you start to perceive things around you and realize that although you're not necessarily going to have a huge effect on what's around you, um, it's a case of absorbing the information around you rather than trying to enforce your will against what is happening as you move upwards. Because people who have their own agenda, often it's the agenda that they have, be it for the good or be it for the ill, it often holds them back or leads them on a false route. And it's important that, as I've found, you know, when trying to move forwards, move higher, that I don't try and force the pace with things that other people aren't going to understand or aren't necessarily going to see as the reality that affects them or the people around me. Um, it's more likely that as we become part of a shared dimension upshift, that gradually we absorb each other's thoughts and we start to perceive each other through whatever means we can, you know, through the media or through our neighborhood relationships or our family relationships or our friendships. Um, as we progress, we have to feel that we're part of a whole movement, a connected movement of like minded people who can achieve things and the power of the people together much more than the individual pushing for the roof and then finding that they come to a solid barrier when things can't get any higher because their motivation runs out, they get tired, they get, you know, wary of the world, and they feel alone and isolated. It's often the case that when you realize you're part of a community of connected people who are all doing the same thing, that gradually we start to move upwards together and make a future reality happen between us. And if you come up with ideas as you go along the way, or ideas of not only self improvement, but ways to improve the situation of other people around you, then that's a good thing. I think, that's more power to the collective. And you should be prepared for some of your thoughts and ideas to be absorbed by other people as you absorb other people's thoughts, and the general motion forwards is the most important thing. And as people let go of possession and quantifying themselves and owning what they're made of, um, you should be aware of what you're made of. You should be aware of your own ideas and what you've come up with. But at the same time, you shouldn't make it the be all and end all. I think we're all guilty of that. I think I've been guilty of that. I think we've all been guilty of that. Um, it's about letting go of that a little bit and just saying, if it's for the common good, and the right people are perceiving each other, then it's not a problem to let go of your raison d'etre and allow other people to share in the idea and expand it in their own way. So you can have many derivatives of the idea, or and the origins of that idea, may, irrespective of where they've come from, they can all be shared by many people, and because of that, uh, it'll become a fruitful crop, which will produce many flowers, many fruits, and a great future for many more people. So yeah, as we make the dimension shift, I did mention earlier that we should keep ourselves grounded. You always keep your feet on the ground, remembering that when you're really not on the money, as it were, when you really miss the mark, or you're overestimating, or you're being a little bit presumptuous, it's often realistic to get the feeling of how your feet um, incur leverage from people around you when you have this false optimism, possibly, um, and you start to notice that you start to be pulled downwards, or you start to lose some of your inertia forwards. It's not something I would say you should duck out of and say, no, I'm definitely on the wrong track. But it's a time to gently correct yourself and realize that somehow, as you move forwards, um, you've got to incorporate other ideas, or develop a new method, or be open to new experiences, or something like that, just to take your path away from something that's pulling you down and that's always going to lead you to perhaps something that maybe is wrong. Maybe it's not right for you, maybe it's right for someone else, maybe you've given it a good go, and not to mention that you should try and not to forget that you should try and regain your feet if you do lose them, and try your best to work on an idea that you may believe is the right thing. If you really can't make it work and it really keeps pulling you down, um, sometimes it's best just to let it go and just say, well, someone else can do that. However, if you really think you can make it and pull it through, there's no harm in trying to bring yourself up with a very complex idea or plan, even if it means doing an extra amount of work and working very hard, and trying your hardest to incorporate that into you and your surroundings. Because often it's a two-edged sword, because sometimes you should just let it go and realize that it's gone too far and it's not for you, or it's not your idea, or it's an idea that's going to bring you down. Or sometimes it's the people who endeavor to make this work and bring it through with them. That can achieve great things. We can achieve great things that way, and almost reach the pinnacle with an incumbency beneath you that's so difficult for other people to believe in, that it's almost like it's pulling you down because of other people's negativity around that. And if you have the optimism, you have the reality, you can see the reality that that is going to be the truth. It's a two-edged sword. You can either let it go, or you can pull it through to fruition. And the people who do that, more power to them, but they have a lot of work on their hands, and they're going to feel extremely tired in the process of reaching the higher level. Um, but you will be rewarded for sticking true to your guns and making something a reality that's going to help other people, or bring a new area of the world into the ascension process. A new area of culture into the ascension process, and this would be great. So it's weighing up the pros and cons. Sometimes someone else will have an idea that you feel negative about to begin with, but just because you felt negative about an idea to begin with doesn't mean you should always, behave negatively towards those ideas, even though for other people, they appear to start working. Um, it's about being adaptable. It's about sharing, and it's about having a good common consensus, which can feel other people's presence in the community, the Ascension community, and realize that the spiritual ethos that you started with, as everyone normally does start through meditation and prayer and thinking around other people, and psychically communicating with other people, and understanding other people's nature, not necessarily through communicating with them verbally. As you start to develop these skills, you need to project your thoughts as well, to enable other people, to see that you're speaking sense when you do convey to them in words what you're trying to tell them. And it's possible also that some people who communicate in words only, and lose the spiritual edge, often set themselves at a lower level. They set themselves with lower targets and lower aspirations. And it's these people who often cause the negativity around the areas that seem too impossible to achieve. Um, However, we don't want to upset these people, but we do want a new reality to come to this earth. And although we are people ascending, it's not just a case of people ascending. We do need new realities to come to fruition. So those are my words on the subject of ascension. And if that's meant anything to you, please like and share this video. Okay, thank you.